Hello and welcome to another Conflict on Camera little episode, and I have frequent World War II TV panelist guest Matt Bone joining us to talk about some images from a camera gun, which is our first for this show. So, good afternoon, Matt.
Good afternoon, Woody. Good to be back.
So, what are we talking about? We're talking about some images that are on screen now. So, tell us about what you think they are and then the backstory.
So these images are from the Imperial War Museum archive, and they are attributed to a flight sergeant Erasmus and on a certain mission in 1943. So what we have is an Fw190 being hit by cannon shells from a Typhoon. And when we start pulling this apart, the story around what actually is happening in this is really quite interesting. So from the image, you can see a Fw190. Now, if we start looking at what it is, we can start narrowing down what's going on here. So it is an Fw185U8, which is the long-range fighter bomber version, which we can actually dig a little bit more into. So you can see all along the fuselage center line, there's an extra bomb carriage, ETC 150, I think it was called. But you can actually see it's got a little horizontal line where the bomb prongs would normally be for holding it on, which means it's there for a drop tank. So when we start digging into that, you can see quite quickly that this is actually one of the maritime reconnaissance Fw190s, whose job it was to fly out from Brest and protect the approaches to the U-boat bases. When we start comparing that to losses and with the information that we have on the IMDb reference, we can see that this was actually taken on the 15th of August, 1943. And the aircraft that it was being filmed from was a Hawker Typhoon, which is probably why I'm here, because it's got to be Hawker Typhoon related.
We don't have to just talk about Hawker Typhoons. That we could just talk about other stuff. But yeah, it's Hawker Typhoon related. Spoiler alert, he has a bit of a thing about Hawker Typhoons.
Well, they're just great, Woody. You know that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
And the fun bit about this is actually a Hawker Typhoon doing what it was designed to do, which was longish range interdiction, being an actual fighter. So what we've got is a 266 Squadron aircraft flown by Flight Sergeant Derek Erasmus, who was a Southern Rhodesian, known to the squadron as Rastus. And the aircraft itself is EJ917. So when we start pulling this together, we've actually got a very bad day for Rastus's squadron, which was 266. So they were flying Circus 50, which was going to, and this is where my French will let me down, which is it Guimpas in Brest, the airfield, which was the main base for these long-range maritime Fw190s, which was 1SA GR128. And I won't attempt the German after just murdering French, because that would be not fair on anybody. So what we have is two squadrons of Typhoons, 193 and 266, and they were escorting 8 263 Squadron Whirly bombers, so Westland Whirlwinds. And this was their second time heading to Brest to cause trouble. And this was a sort of strange time of the year in that there was a lot of weather going on. And when you're reading the ORBs, there's quite a bit of downtime for the squadron, especially the ones that were being based out of Cornwall, as these were. So as they departed, 193 got ahead of everybody and had to turn back to wait for the bombers. 266 and 263 joined up, but because 193 were circling around a bit, they had to turn for home. And what happened was, just as they were getting over the Brest Peninsula, they hit more weather, and 266 and 263 were separated. The Whirlwinds decided to return home, but the Typhoons pressed on, which was what they sort of usually did. And the squadron leader, McIntyre, of 266 was a quite aggressive chap, much like most of the squadron leaders on Typhoon squadrons at this time. They were trying to sort of make a name for the aircraft, prove their worth. So they pressed on and started to attack the airfield. And what happened was they were bounced. They were spotted, and 128 got 8 Fw190s up. And as they started their strafing run on the airfield, they were attacked. So what we have in this image is moments into the battle. So one Fw190, which we have in that picture, we can narrow it down to be the one flown by a chap called George Sievert. And for the geeky ones amongst you, it looks like that is actually Fw190A5U8 with a work number of 150891. And what happens is Sievert dives in and he immediately catches McIntyre. McIntyre calls a break, and McIntyre and Rastus, as his number 2, break away from the rest of the squadron. But Sievert gets a run on McIntyre, scores hits on the Typhoon, which bursts into flames, and McIntyre goes down. But Sievert is diving in, and he overshoots. So Rastus Erasmus is able to cut in behind him. In the combat report, which he says he's on about a 30-degree deflection, but we can see from this set of images that he's a little bit tighter. He closes to about 50 yards and opens up. And what we have in this set of pictures is the effect of 4 Hispano 2 cannons firing 20mm shells. You can see the initial strike on the tail, followed by the ones that Rastus records in his combat report around the cockpit. Now, sort of main difference really between sort of the Allied fighters and the Fw190s is the main fuel tank for the 190 was actually sort of in and around the back of the pilot. He was sitting on it. So when you hit the cockpit, there was a good chance you'd hit not just the pilot, but also the fuel tank. So that's what we can see in sort of the later run of these pictures, is the fuel tank exploding. And these sort of 6 images in the main run, we're talking, this is seconds into this engagement. We've already lost 1 Typhoon, and immediately that attacking Fw190 is then attacked. And within seconds of this engagement happening, 2 aircraft are down and 2 pilots are killed. So McIntyre was killed in his aircraft, and Sievert, who's just scored his first victory, becomes a casualty moments later. It's a classic bounce engagement. Everybody scatters. Erasmus finds himself on his own. He manages to shoot at another Fw190 and claim some damage, but everybody's breaking. It's, what was once 2 squadrons attacking each other is suddenly now lots of little fights going on their own. So after this happens, you've got a group of 3 Typhoons basically diving for the deck. And as they do that, more reinforcements come in the form of JG2, and they're bounced at low level, which is the sort of reverse of what usually was happening around this time, because the Fw190s were flying low-level tip-and-run raids, being bounced at low level by Typhoons. And this is revenge, essentially. One pilot by the name of Biddulph made a hard turn, but he was too low, spun and crashed in, where the other 2, Barney Wright and Tusky Howarth, managed to fight their way free and just about get back to Cornwall. And you've immediately got a situation where you've sent 16 Typhoons out, 8 Whirlwinds, half of that's come back, and then literally half a squadron returns at the end of that engagement. And it's one of a combat that we could probably pick exactly that same story out of hundreds. But we've actually got a little bit of footage here, and we're able to put some names to it just by piecing some of those little elements within it together, and the dates we have provided by the archive that holds the image. For me, it's quite a powerful image because we tend to talk a lot about air-to-air combat and victories, and this pilot's got 20, this other pilot's got 10. And it's very easy for us when we're talking about air power to take the human out of it. It's an airplane getting shot down. In this case, we're watching a man die. When we watch other films of, say, a B-17 going down, that could be anything up to 10 men dying there on screen. And it's quite a moving thing. And I thought I'd offer this one up to you because I've shown this in the past to groups of people who were quite pleased to see it happen. Because it's a German getting shot down and he's the baddie. Well, he was 28, still a young man doing probably what he loved, which was flying.
It's just that opportunity to just stop and look at one image, isn't it? And we're in an environment with Google and Google Images. The images flash by our eyes so fast. And we go, oh, look, there's a Tiger tank, there's a Sherman, there's an aircraft, there's a Messerschmitt, there's a Focke-Wulf. And it's just that moment of pausing and realizing a guy is losing his life in that photo there. And interesting as well, because when you sent me the image and I didn't know the backstory, the idea I got from it is it's a good day for us because we're seeing an Fw190 go down. But in fact, it's actually unrepresentative in some ways of what was going on in the grand scheme of things, in that the squadron suffered losses. So the single frame is an artificial interpretation of the event.
Exactly.
And also a reminder, you said, sorry to interrupt you, that I tend to think as a Normandy guy, the Typhoon as ground attack and the support, that it is actually, in this case, it's engaging in the air. It's engaging other aircraft. Good to see that represented, even in a tragic environment like this.
And the thing to remember to get a little bit Typhoon geeky here is this is a sort of sub 15,000 feet engagement. This is where the Fw190 and the Typhoon, especially the A5, are very closely matched. The 190 can climb faster, probably dive a little bit better, but the Typhoon's more maneuverable. And in this case, they've got the 190 in this case, the A5U8's only got 2 cannon to make it lighter, so it could fly for longer range. So it's a classic dogfight where everything's quite even. And at the end of the day, the scores actually on German side is they only lose 2 aircraft, but are able to claim 3. Even though the JG2 guys would say they shot down Spitfires, because they're always Spitfire.
And also, you said the swiftness of this incident is the margin of error is absolutely minuscule, isn't it? And whether you're talking a veteran pilot of either side or a newbie, microsecond that elapses when you're making a decision is, I'm going to lose this, I'm going to win this. And, it's human error, luck, timing, all those factors that go into something so intensely fast. And you think of something, again, like ground combat, maybe tank commanders got a bit longer to think about things, maybe infantry commanders, I don't know. It's fascinating that the outcome was decided really within 2 heartbeats. Yeah.
It's one of those things that when you read the combat report, it'll probably take you longer to read the combat report than the combat lasted. It's amazing that the pilots were able to remember all this, but with the adrenaline flowing so much, things do slow down a bit. This is a moment of many, and thank you for letting me share it with you.
Well, no, thank you for coming on, and you can come back on anytime and do something else. So there we are. That was it, folks. That was a short and sweet conflict on camera about a Typhoon engaging an Fw190 as part of a broader story. So thank you very much, Mr. Matt Bone, and I will see you all again on World War II TV. Don't forget to click subscribe, share what we're doing with your friends, and check us out on Patreon. This is Paul Woodadge and Matt Bone saying thank you for watching, everybody.